Standing before the continent's most powerful ruler, King Luca, she makes a shocking proposal. With unwavering determination, she demands that he take her as his wife, right now. She knows this path means she will be completely consumed by him, but believes it was her destiny all along. Even as nations rose, the world remained soaked in conflict. The kingdom of Albu is now caught in the crossfire of a brutal war. Inside the temple, Princess and High Priestess Kate tries to lead her people, but her mind races. She's lost contact with her father and brother at the front lines and feels the weight of her nation's despair. Refusing to offer false hope, she resolves to use a secret, last-ditch plan. Turning to her subjects, she prepares to speak directly to the soldiers fighting for their lives. In the temple, Kate offers her deepest respect to the soldiers. All she can do now is pray for their safe return to their families. But on the front lines, the battle rages, and many have already fallen. Knowing prayer isn't enough, she silently vows to find another way to save her nation. She comforts a young girl, urging her not to lose hope. Though her people put their faith in her, Kate stands alone by a window, sighing as she witnesses the enemy's overwhelming attack, wondering how much longer they can endure. A century-long war was about to end, but Verde's jealous king shattered the peace. He set his sights on Albu's rich lands, demanding surrender. Refusing to submit, Kate's father chose to fight. Alone and without allies, Kate despairs until her brother, Marcus, appears. He's come to say his farewells before heading to the battlefield. She clutches his hand, offering a desperate prayer for his safety. With unwavering resolve, Marcus swears he will defend their people, no matter the cost. Marcus confidently promises to drive the Verde forces back, and for a moment, Kate believes him. But their hope is instantly crushed when a messenger rushes in, shouting that a key town has been breached. They stare in horror. If Lien is fallen, the castle town is next. With no time to waste, Marcus entrusts the castle to his sister and departs for the front. As the sounds of enemy shelling grow closer, Kate knows she's out of options. With grim determination, she decides she must act before everything is lost. In a desperate attempt to find a solution, Kate kneels inside a hallowed chamber. She recalls an ancient legend from 1,000 years ago, when the progenitor vampire first appeared. This monstrous being treated human lives as a mere game, a way to pass the time. Humanity fought back, and after a long, brutal war, they found their savior. Stella, the High Priestess of Albu, used her immense spiritual power to seal the vampire's body and soul away. Now, before Stella's tomb, Kate knows this forbidden power is the only hope left for her kingdom. The first vampire, Camilla, lies sealed beneath Albu. As a descendant of the High Priestess Stella, Kate believes she can transfer that ancient seal into her own body and claim its overwhelming power. But the sheer scale of the task makes her tremble with doubt. A memory of her grandmother then flashes through her mind. The old woman had told her she was the spitting image of Stella, a light destined to save their nation. Buoyed by these words, Kate's resolve hardens. Bathed in a brilliant glow, she knows it's not a choice. She must do this. With her resolve set, Kate begins the forbidden rite. She declares that she will release the secret art binding the ancient vampire and transfer its soul into her own body. A wave of holy power erupts from her, materializing into a glowing golden key. Gripping the artifact, her eyes blaze with power as she commands the sealed being to awaken. With a final shout, she calls out its name, Camilla. The tomb explodes in a violent storm of dark red energy, and from the ensuing chaos, the progenitor vampire finally appears. The furious vampire, Camilla, immediately recognized Kate as her ancient rival, Stella. She lunged, screaming that she would tear her apart for the humiliation. But Kate hadn't freed the vampire just to fight her. With a defiant shout, she commanded the progenitor to dwell inside her own body. Camilla froze in shock as dark energy tendrils erupted from Kate, pulling the ancient being in against her will. The ritual complete, Kate rose to her feet. A crazed, triumphant laugh echoed through the chamber as she embraced her terrifying new power. But Camilla's consciousness awakens inside Kate's body, laughing at the girl's foolish attempt to control her. She mocks the princess, finding her new vessel surprisingly comfortable. The ancient vampire is shocked to discover the pure power residing within, but her joy is cut short. Suddenly, she can't move. Kate's spirit reemerges from the darkness, declaring that she isn't just a container. She's here to steal all of Camilla's abilities for herself. The progenitor screams in disbelief, realizing the human is actually overpowering her will, a feat she thought was impossible. Golden light settles around Kate as her ritual ends. Her eyes blaze with newfound energy as she clutches her chest, feeling the immense power of the progenitor vampire now coursing through her veins. Her dangerous gamble had paid off, the plan had succeeded. But as she floats in a sea of dark energy, her thoughts turn to the brutal war raging outside. On the battlefield, her people are being cut down. An enemy commander's voice rings out, roaring at his soldiers to leave no survivors from the kingdom of Albu. This is the horror she has sworn to end. On the battlefield, the Albu kingdom's forces are getting overwhelmed. A knight named Marcus rallies the troops, screaming that they must hold the line or their nation is finished. He begs them to hang on, believing a chance for victory will come. From a hill, the enemy commander, Kimbley, scoffs at their pathetic struggle, calling them insects. He finds their futile resistance entertaining. Just then, a scout rushes over with an urgent report. A mysterious woman has suddenly appeared in the sky above the Albu camp. Down below, Kate floats over the fray, a dark and powerful new player in this war. Floating from the sky, a voice rings out across the battlefield. She introduces herself as Kate Crystal Albu, the princess priestess. On the ground, Marcus and his men look up in shock. Kate then reveals her terrifying secret. The soul of the progenitor vampire, Camilla, now dwells within her body. The enemy soldiers of Verde recoil in fear, but their commander, Kimbley, dismisses it as a trick. He screams for his archers to aim at her. Unfazed, Kate delivers a chilling ultimatum: surrender now or face punishment. Commander Kimbley gives the order, and a black cloud of arrows fills the sky, aimed directly at Kate. On the ground, a horrified Marcus screams her name, but the princess is unfazed. She notes their refusal to surrender and promises not to hold back. With a surge of dark red energy, she stops the volley of arrows just inches from her body. The air crackles with power as she effortlessly redirects the entire attack, sending the swarm of arrows right back at her stunned enemies. Her own soldiers can only gape in disbelief. The enemy commander, Kimbley, watches in stunned silence, unable to believe what just happened. His own arrows rain down on his men, throwing their ranks into chaos. Unbothered by the turmoil she caused, Kate floats down to face him directly. With a whisper, she asks if he still thinks her power is a lie. Crushing pressure bears down on Kimbley, who struggles to breathe. He finally realizes the terrifying power he's up against. A wicked smile spreads across Kate's face as she prepares to address the entire battlefield. With a voice amplified by immense power, Kate bellows a single command to her enemies: retreat. The terrified Verde soldiers don't need to be told twice, scrambling away from the terrifying princess. Back in the Albu ranks, the soldiers stand stunned, unable to process the sudden turn of events. They question if the battle is truly over. Stepping forward, Marcus raises his sword high into the air. He proudly declares that his sister has driven out the invaders and secured their victory. His words ignite the soldiers, turning their confusion into thunderous cheers for their country and their princess. The terrified Verde soldiers fled back to the border, but Kate knew this victory was only temporary. The vengeful enemy king would not give up so easily. Back in the palace, as her council worried, Kate announced she had a plan. She approached her father, the king, and firmly asked for permission to act on her own to save their nation. With his blessing secured, she immediately departed. Now, riding in an ornate carriage, her attendant informs her that they will arrive at their destination shortly. Kate's risky gambit was about to begin. As her carriage arrived, Kate gazed out at the legendary Neagle Kingdom, the continent's greatest power. The sheer scale of the place was overwhelming, and the intense pressure sent a shiver through her body. But she refused to back down. For her family who believed in her, and for the future of her own kingdom, she steeled her resolve. Walking into the grand throne room, her eyes locked onto the intimidating figure seated before her. There, bathed in light, sat the silver-haired king, Luca Serendipite Neagle, a slight smirk on his face. King Luca casually confirmed her identity, demanding Kate state her business. With unwavering resolve, Kate brought up the brutal war between her kingdom and their enemy, Verde. Luca leaned in, a knowing look on his face, coolly replying that he was well aware. But he didn't just know about the war. He knew her darkest secret. He knew that she, a princess and high priestess, had absorbed the power of the ancient vampire Camilla. And with that terrifying, inhuman strength, she had single-handedly crushed the invading army, a fact he seemed to find very interesting. Kate didn't deny it. Instead, she announced she was there to negotiate. She boldly claimed that the immense power she possessed would be a great benefit to him and his entire kingdom. Then, with the whole court listening, she dropped the most shocking proposal imaginable. She demanded that he take her as his wife, not someday, but right now, immediately. The entire throne room froze in stunned silence. King Luca could only stare back, his crimson eyes wide with disbelief at her completely unexpected and audacious command. The court immediately explodes in outrage. A furious Marquis calls her impudent, demanding King Luca reject her disrespectful proposal at once. But Kate remains unfazed, having expected this hostile reaction. She knows exactly who she's dealing with. This is the man who eliminated his own father to seize the throne. He is ruthless, and she understands that failing to earn his favor could have deadly consequences. One wrong move, and her life is over. King Luca's gaze turned to ice. He coldly reminded the furious Lord Capra that he hadn't given him permission to speak. A terrifying pressure immediately silenced the entire room. The Marquis, now pale with fear, could only stammer an apology and retreat. With the court under his complete control, Luca turned back to a stunned Kate. He announced that he would accept her proposal. She was totally speechless. Noticing her shock, Luca leaned in, playfully asking if she wasn't happy with his decision. She quickly stammered her thanks. Luca dismissed the formalities and immediately commanded his court to announce the marriage across the entire continent. For a moment, Kate felt a wave of relief. She had succeeded. Her nation was finally safe. But just as she celebrated internally, Luca stopped her. He had one thing to tell her. Realizing her own omission, she met his gaze and confessed the truth. She is a vampire. A shadow of pure hatred crossed the king's face. He despised them. However, his cold pragmatism won out. He declared that if it benefits his nation, nothing else matters. After unpacking, Kate collapses onto a sofa, ready to finally rest. But the lavish room feels cold and incredibly empty. Her mind flashes back to the wedding. As a priestess, she'd long given up on any romantic dreams of marriage. The ceremony was proof of that. Right after her confession, Luca took her to the cathedral. With only a single knight as their witness, they held a quiet, hollow ceremony. It was a mere formality. She reminded herself that his coldness didn't matter. To her, he was just a tool worth using. Her first day of marriage was a lonely one, marked by a solitary dinner and the promise of a loveless night. This emptiness, she reasoned, was the price she had willingly paid for the power to protect her home. She tried to convince herself that this was fine. Suddenly, the teacup beside her began to tremble violently as a strange, dark energy pulsed through the room. Her golden eyes snapped open. She was no longer in her chambers, but floating in a vast, dark void, utterly confused as to where she was. Before Kate stands a stunning vampire noble lounging on a throne. This is Camilla, the source of her new abilities. The ancient vampire smirks, asking if Kate has finally given up on running away. Kate, unfazed, declares she was simply busy. Now, she's here to learn how to control the immense power she was given. Amused, Camilla agrees to teach her. In a flash, she closes the distance between them. She whispers of the power to split the earth and race the wind, but it comes at a price, the need to take sustenance from the living. Camilla pulls away, declaring the lesson is over for the day. A drained Kate protests, insisting she needs to know more. The ancient vampire simply smirks, musing on how exceptionally compatible they are. As the dark void crumbles, Kate's consciousness fades, her questions unanswered. She snaps back to reality in her room, a servant's voice pulling her from her thoughts. It's time to meet the king. Still reeling from Camilla's cryptic words about their connection, Kate steadies herself. She resolves to get her answers the next time they meet. Determined to get answers, Kate stepped into the king's chambers. After dismissing the servant, she found herself alone with Luca. The king sat in silence, his intense red eyes watching her. In a flash, he was standing right in front of her, his towering presence making her gasp. Her heart pounded in her chest as his ice-cold hand gently cupped her cheek. With his expression completely unreadable, a wave of terror washed over Kate. She had no idea what this powerful, imposing man was thinking as she stood frozen by his chilling touch. As Luca stood over her, he wondered what she was thinking, forced into this loveless marriage purely out of duty. Suddenly, he let go. The king stated he had no interest in forcing himself on someone so inexperienced. In fact, he'd already chased off the other nobles who had their sights on her. Just as he turned to leave, Kate impulsively grabbed his wrist, pleading for him to wait. The instant their skin met, a crimson energy erupted from her hand. Stunned, Kate could only watch as her own golden eyes flashed a dangerous red. A strange, intoxicating scent filled Kate's senses. In her mind, an image of Camilla, the ancient vampire, appeared, whispering about blood. Overwhelmed, Kate cried out and collapsed, her body convulsing with an unfamiliar power. As Luca reached for her, she looked up, her golden eyes now a terrifying crimson, small fangs peeking past her lips. Before the king could react, she lunged with shocking speed, pinning him to the floor. All reason was gone, replaced by a raw, predatory instinct she couldn't control. Before the king could process what was happening, Kate slammed him to the ground. All control was gone, replaced by a wild, predatory instinct. As she pinned him down, her crimson eyes burning with an unfamiliar hunger, Luca had a shocking thought. He wondered if this was her true plan all along, a scheme to take over his entire country. Overwhelmed by an uncontrollable urge, she leaned in, and a sharp pain shot through the king's shoulder. The powerful ruler was now completely at her mercy. Pinned beneath her, Luca weakly gasped for her to run. Tears streamed down Kate's face as she trembled, fighting an internal battle and repeating his command. Suddenly, the king understood everything. This wasn't her. She wasn't in control of this monstrous power. He realized this violent act wasn't of her own will. He declared that if that was the case, he knew exactly what to do. A strange power began to glow in his hand, preparing to turn the tables on his attacker. With his own power now active, Luca flipped their positions, pinning the struggling princess beneath him. Ignoring the throbbing pain in his shoulder, he held her down firmly. He demanded she tell him what to do, desperate to reach the real Kate trapped inside. Her body trembled violently as she fought a losing battle. The primal urge was all-consuming, a single thought echoing in her mind. She wanted blood. Luca could see the war raging within her eyes, a conflict between the woman he knew and the monster she was becoming. Luca held the struggling princess down, watching the internal war rage in her eyes. He could see she wasn't trying to kill him. The monstrous power controlling her just wanted one thing. A wild idea formed in his mind. He asked if the real Kate could still hear him, making a shocking offer. He declared that if she still had her reason, he would give her what she craved. Overcome by the all-consuming urge, she lunged forward, finally taking what the monster inside her so desperately craved. A final shred of Kate's humanity screamed that this was wrong. But the primal instinct was a tidal wave, and her will was completely washed away. She accepted the king's shocking offer, taking what her new monstrous power desperately needed. A horrifying thought surfaced. She couldn't stop. Luca grit his teeth, his face flushed as he held her steady, enduring the intense exchange of power. When the overwhelming urge finally faded, Kate's strength gave out, and she collapsed against his chest, completely spent. Luca gritted his teeth, his entire body tensing as he endured the overwhelming exchange. Kate, completely lost to the sensation, wondered what this strange new feeling was as she took what her power desperately craved. When the intense moment finally passed, she pulled away. The king looked down at her, his expression weary but calm, and asked if the vampire was satisfied. Snapping back to her senses, a horrified Kate could only stammer out a frantic apology, shocked by her own monstrous actions. The next morning, sunlight streamed into an unfamiliar room. Kate slowly blinked awake, her body feeling heavy as she stirred in the lavish bed. Completely disoriented, she mumbled to herself, trying to remember where she was. As her senses returned, she shifted under the silk sheets and froze. A wave of heat washed over her as a shocking realization hit her full force. With wide eyes, she understood she wasn't wearing anything at all. The intense memories of the previous night came flooding back, leaving her utterly speechless. Flashes of the intense night flooded Kate's mind. Overwhelmed, she frantically wondered what she had done and where the king was. Sitting up, she saw she was completely alone in the massive bedchamber. Her eyes then caught a small, stained cloth left beside her. A hot blush crept up her neck as she realized he must have taken care of everything himself. Mortified by her own behavior and his kindness, she decided she had been a complete nuisance and needed to find him to apologize right away. With her mind made up, Kate knew she also had to thank the king for his gentle care. Steeling her nerves, she looked towards the chamber doors, ready to leave and find him. But as she shifted to get out of bed, a sudden, mortifying realization hit her. Her eyes went wide as she frantically clutched the sheets, pulling them tightly around herself. She was still completely bare, with no clothes in sight. Trapped and blushing furiously, her plan to apologize came to a screeching halt. Still trapped in the king's chamber, Kate felt a pang of disappointment. She figured Luca wasn't the type to wait for her to wake up, even after the intense night they shared. Her thoughts then drifted to the strange, feverish feelings she'd had. Before she could ponder it further, a sharp jolt shot through her mind. Her eyes flew wide as a voice echoed directly in her head. Stunned, Kate realized it was Camilla, urgently calling out to her through their shared vampiric connection. The unexpected mental summons left her completely bewildered. The world around Kate suddenly twisted, pulling her consciousness into a strange, crimson void. High above her, a powerful figure lounged on a grand throne. It was the vampire noble, Camilla, her red eyes gleaming with amusement. With a condescending smirk, she welcomed the little girl into this bizarre mental domain. Utterly bewildered, Kate could only stare up at the imposing vampire. She had been summoned into a strange psychic space and had no idea what this powerful being wanted from her. Camilla immediately cut to the chase, bluntly asking if Kate had fed on blood the night before. Kate froze, her mind racing with horrified embarrassment. How could the vampire noble possibly know about her intimate time with Luca? Pushing past the shock, she realized this was her chance to get answers. Admitting it was true, Kate desperately asked why she suddenly had the urge and what the strange fever was. A wicked, fanged smile spread across Camilla's face as she simply called the princess desperate. Camilla casually mocked the princess, asking if that fever was so intense it left her completely flustered. Kate's patience finally snapped. Surrounded by a glowing aura, she demanded Camilla stop teasing her and answer the question. With a surge of power, she issued a chilling threat: talk now, or she'd place an even stronger bind on the vampire soul. Unfazed, Camilla simply remarked that Kate shared the same terrible sense of humor as someone named Stella, leaving the princess even more confused than before. The glowing chains around Camilla tightened, but the vampire noble simply smirked. She told Kate to listen closely, revealing a shocking truth: their souls were surprisingly compatible. In fact, Camilla explained, their souls were overlapping so much they were practically melting together. Because of this powerful link, Camilla's own primal desire for survival was triggered inside the princess. With a fanged grin, she finally clarified that what Kate felt was a pure vampire survival instinct. Kate was left stunned, the pieces finally clicking into place. Kate reeled from the revelation, her mind struggling to accept it. She stammered, asking about the overwhelming urges she felt after feeding on Luca, the memory of their intimate night flashing through her mind. Camilla simply smirked, confirming Kate had experienced it firsthand. The vampire noble then dropped a bombshell, explaining it was a simple, intense desire. She revealed that because pain sours blood, vampires evolved. To ensure a good meal, their bite bestows intense pleasure. The princess paled, her hands clenching the sheets as she whispered the word, pleasure. Camilla continued, her smile turning sharp. She explained that for a vampire, the act of feeding is meant to satisfy their deepest desires, completely freeing them from reason. A vivid image of her intense night with Luca flashed through Kate's mind. With a taunting gleam in her eyes, Camilla confirmed the princess had experienced that complete loss of control firsthand. The horrifying truth crashed down on Kate. She wasn't just feeding to survive. She was drowning in an overwhelming pleasure, completely losing herself in the moment. Kate nervously asked if this overwhelming urge would last forever. With a cruel smile, Camilla confirmed it would, warning that if Kate didn't feed every single night, her sanity would eventually burn away. The vampire noble taunted her, painting a horrifying picture of what would happen once she lost her mind. A bloody vision flashed through Kate's mind, her future self, completely unhinged. Camilla then revealed her endgame, declaring she would take Kate's soul and total control of her body. With a twisted laugh, she mockingly encouraged Kate to resist. The thought of being possessed was terrifying, but Kate knew showing fear meant handing Camilla the win. Her eyes flared with golden light as she rejected that fate. She declared that the day Camilla took control would never come, and chains of holy power erupted around her. From her mental throne, Camilla just laughed, eager to see how long this new courage would last. Alone in the sunlit hall, Kate realized she never imagined a side effect like this. She hardened her resolve, deciding she had to be honest with Luca about the entire situation. Kate steeled herself outside the king's office, ready to confess everything. She knew she couldn't risk their alliance over a lie. But then, a new thought made her freeze. If she had to feed every day, that meant she and Luca would have to be together every single night. A deep blush crept up her face as the implication hit her hard. Maybe she could leave that one tiny detail out for now? Shaking her head, she entered the office. Luca looked up from his desk, waiting as she stood before him, ready to talk. Luca absorbed the news, his expression unreadable. He called her new condition troublesome and asked if there was any other way to manage it. Blushing, Kate explained that if she didn't feed regularly, what happened the night before would happen again. His eyes sharpened as he understood the grim reality. She could lose control and attack someone against her will. Feeling like a burden, Kate insisted she'd find another solution. But before she could finish, Luca shut down the idea with a single, firm no. Luca shut down Kate's idea, refusing to risk the safety of his soldiers or servants. Stunned, Kate could only agree with his cold logic. He then reminded her that despite their arrangement, she was still his wife. His voice was firm as he declared he had no intention of letting her touch anyone else. Extending a hand, Luca made the final decision. He announced that she could have his blood every single night. The sudden, intimate nature of his offer sent a deep blush across both their faces. Kate's mind exploded with the implication of his words, imagining what every night would actually look like. Her face flushed a deep crimson. Seeing her reaction, a flustered Luca abruptly declared the conversation over and dismissed her. Kate stammered her agreement and turned to leave, but she couldn't let things end there. Determined not to be a burden, she marched back to his desk. She asked for work, wanting to prove she was more than just a weapon. Luca looked up, revealing he had already been thinking about it, for her sake. Kate passionately declared her desire to be useful, not just for herself, but for the people of Nigel as well. She refused to sit idle, waiting to be deployed like a mere weapon. Seeing her fierce determination, Luca finally relented. He held up 2 fingers and announced he would give her 2 tasks. Her first assignment was a massive one: memorize the entire geography of the country before the next battle. For her second task, a mountain of documents suddenly flew into the air, showing her the sheer volume of work she had just requested. Luca revealed her second job. She had to sort through petitions from citizens across the entire kingdom. He explained that both tasks were essential for her to truly understand his country. Kate was floored. She never imagined he would actually give her a chance to learn. As he moved, her eyes caught his shoulder, remembering the injury he'd sustained. Luca slammed a heavy roll of maps onto his desk, informing her the petitions would be sent later. It was official. Her royal homework had begun, and there was a lot of it. Overjoyed, Kate thanked Luca profusely, promising she would not let him down. He curtly dismissed her, telling her to go if she was done. As Kate turned to leave, she froze. It suddenly dawned on her that she had been so wrapped up in her own problems, she'd let an injured man do all this work for her. Guilt-ridden, she spun around and marched back to his desk. Luca looked up, clearly annoyed, asking if there was something else. Without a word, she presented a small, glowing pink item, leaving him staring at it in total surprise. Luca stared, baffled, at the glowing pink object Kate presented. He asked what it was, but she didn't answer with words. Instead, she firmly placed it in his palm, her touch lingering on his hand. He looked up at her, completely stunned by the sudden, close contact. Unseen by the pair, a mysterious woman with regal purple hair watched them from afar through a pair of binoculars. She seethed, furious that some country girl had stolen her place. With a cold glare, she decided it was finally time to send her own player into the game. Kate explained the glowing item was an ointment she'd made herself. Luca, still holding the unexpected gift, asked why she was giving it to him. Blushing with embarrassment, she confessed her guilt for making him work so hard while he was still injured. With a flustered apology and a deep bow, she quickly excused herself and hurried out of the room. As she walked away, she noticed her fresh clothes and cleaned appearance, softly thanking him for his quiet consideration. Left alone, Luca simply watched her go, a thoughtful expression on his face. Luca stared at the small pink gift, lost in thought. He finally admitted to himself that he was the one who had pushed her too hard. A memory of Kate's passionate, vulnerable expression flashed in his mind. He never realized the princess priestess of Albu could look like that, and a small smirk played on his lips. Just as he was contemplating this new side of her, his office door swung open without warning. A voice from the doorway quickly apologized for entering without knocking, shattering the quiet moment. The person who barged in was Stefan, a royal guard knight, buried under a massive stack of papers. He apologized, explaining his hands were too full to knock. Luca cut straight to business, asking if he brought the documents on Verde. Stefan confirmed, but was immediately distracted by the king's rare good mood. He pointed out the smirk on Luca's face and asked if something nice had happened. Luca remained silent, lost in thought, with Kate's pink gift sitting on his desk. Elsewhere, a mysterious hand placed a letter on the cold ground. Meanwhile, Kate was already hard at work, studying documents about the kingdom. She quickly realized that even a great nation like Nigel had rural areas suffering from the long war. A moment later, a maid entered the room, her hands shaking as she carried a tea service. The nervous girl stammered, calling her Princess Priestess. The title was a subtle but clear sign that she wasn't yet accepted as the king's wife. Despite the slight, Kate simply offered a warm smile, thanking the maid and telling her she was thirsty. The maid's hands trembled, her fear practically radiating off her. Kate watched her, a wave of disappointment washing over her. She'd hoped to connect with the people here, but she knew her very presence was unsettling. This was the price for hosting Camilla's power, and she had to accept it. With a composed expression, Kate kindly dismissed the maid, saying she needed to focus and would call for her later. The nervous girl clenched her fist, quickly agreed, and scurried out of the room, leaving Kate alone with her duties. Kate looked up from her papers, shocked to see that night had already fallen. She'd been so absorbed, she hadn't noticed the time passing. A soft click at the door drew her attention, and it swung open to reveal King Luca. Startled, Kate quickly stood and apologized for being late. With his arms crossed, Luca calmly observed her, remarking that she must have been very focused. Kate admitted she just got a little carried away with her work. On a nearby table, her tea sat untouched and cold, a silent testament to her dedication. Luca pointed out that while he didn't mind her being carried away, she should have at least asked a servant to light the room. A wave of realization washed over Kate. Not only had she forgotten about the lights, but the staff hadn't even called her for dinner. As Luca lit a candelabra, Kate quickly composed herself. She explained that due to Camilla's vampire influence, her night vision was so sharp she simply forgot. Luca watched her, noting she wouldn't complain about being neglected. He decided to let it slide, accepting her excuse without a word. Luca simply said, "Oh well," taking Kate firmly by the hand. He led her across the room toward the large bed, leaving her completely stunned and questioning his actions. They both sat on the edge of the mattress. Without a word of explanation, Luca began to unbutton his shirt, pulling it off to reveal his toned physique and an old battle scar on his shoulder. Kate stared, her face flushing in pure shock at the unexpected sight. He then turned back to her, holding out a small, red pouch as an offering. Luca revealed his intention. He wanted to test the ointment she made. Kate hesitantly agreed, taking the small container from his outstretched hand. Sitting on the bed beside him, she gently reached out, her fingers brushing against the old scar on his shoulder. She asked how much it still hurt. Luca explained that it was healing, so it just felt a bit tight. As she focused on the wound, Kate's eyes widened, caught off guard by their sudden closeness and the king's imposing presence. He watched her silently, his gaze intense. Kate felt her self-control slipping away, desperately wondering if she could hold onto her reason. Just then, Luca pulled her close. He looked directly at her and made a shocking suggestion. Before she lost control, she should bite him. His words sent a jolt through her, and her heart began to race. Her vampiric instinct surged, her fangs descending against her will. A dangerous thrill took over. Though she knew it was wrong, she admitted to herself that she had been waiting for this moment. Giving in completely, she lunged toward his neck. Kate's control finally shattered. She pressed close to Luca, her senses completely overwhelmed by the powerful, thundering sound of his heartbeat. A sharp, intense sensation shot through the king, making his entire body go rigid. Meanwhile, in the royal meeting hall, the kingdom's most powerful nobles gathered, their patience wearing thin. One official nervously questioned why His Majesty hadn't arrived yet. The air grew tense as the Marquis Capra, a stern old man, irritably tapped his fingers on the table. He declared that it was almost time for them to begin, with or without the king. Luca's unexplained absence was clearly causing a stir among his council, and they were not pleased about being kept waiting for their tardy ruler. The heavy doors of the meeting hall burst open, silencing the room. King Luca strode in confidently, his royal night guard, Stefan, right behind him. He scanned the assembled nobles, calmly observing that everyone was there. With a hint of irritation, Marquis Capra explained they had all arrived early to await His Majesty. But Luca was completely unfazed by the subtle jab at his tardiness. Taking his seat on the throne, the king simply called their dedication admirable, effortlessly deflecting the old man's complaint and seizing control of the room. Before they got to the official agenda, he announced he needed to talk about the monster, the vampire who is now their queen. The council hall fell into a tense silence as all eyes darted to the throne. Luca remained perfectly still, but a dangerous glint in his red eyes promised that the old man had just made a very big mistake. The atmosphere in the room turned ice cold. Luca coolly questioned what there was to discuss, reminding them they all saw the negotiations. But the nobles were furious. One accused him of misjudging the situation, while Marquis Capra exploded, calling the king a tyrant for marrying someone harboring a savage being without the Senate's approval. Nearby, Stefan smirked at their childish methods. Unfazed, Luca's thoughts turned dark. He recalled the time he dealt with his own father, reaffirming that he only ever does what is necessary for the good of the nation. His decision was final. Luca coolly turned their fear into his greatest weapon. He reminded the nobles that just as they feared vampires, so did the rest of the world. With Kate wielding the progenitor's terrifying power, no nation would be stupid enough to start a war. And even if they were, Luca smirked, his new queen was more than prepared to meet them on the battlefield. But Marquis Capra wasn't convinced. He twisted the king's logic, demanding to know what he planned to do about the danger of keeping such a powerful being inside their own walls. Luca met their fear with an ice-cold promise. He had spent 2 days observing Kate and concluded her intentions were genuine. However, he assured the nobles she would be under constant surveillance. If she ever became a threat, he swore he wouldn't hesitate to deal with her permanently. Marquis Capra still sputtered that even the king was no match for a vampire. Unfazed, Luca internally confirmed he was simply using a powerful tool for the nation. He then curtly announced an inspection, abruptly ending the heated council meeting for the day. As Luca walked away, Marquis Capra desperately called for him to wait. The old noble boldly accused the king of spending his nights with a monster, questioning if he had been captivated. A flash of pure rage crossed Luca's face, making the Marquis instantly regret his words. The king's fury quickly turned to ice. He calmly stated that he would forgive the Marquis's vulgar delusions and disrespect, but only this once. Terrified by the threat, the Marquis immediately stammered an apology for crossing the line. Furious after his public humiliation, Marquis Capra stormed into his study. He slammed the door and angrily swiped books off his desk, cursing the king as a young punk. All of his carefully laid plans were at risk of being completely ruined. Suddenly, a soft knock interrupted his rage. His granddaughter, Violet, called out to him. The Marquis's foul mood instantly evaporated. Violet entered with a confident smile, declaring that when it comes to any matter concerning His Majesty Luca, she will always come running. The Marquis fretted that things had taken a disastrous turn. With Kate in the castle, his plan to marry Violet to the king was now in jeopardy. He furiously insisted that she must become the queen, not some lesser companion. Violet simply smiled, calmly agreeing. With an air of confidence, she declared the king would surely realize she was a far better match than some girl from the countryside. Elsewhere, as Luca walked through the palace, Stefan questioned his early end to the meeting. Luca coolly admitted it was the only way to shut the nobles up. With a sly grin, Stefan pointed out that the king got seriously angry back there. He teased that Luca's fury only flared because the nobles had insulted his wife. The knight figured this meant Luca was starting to get along well with Kate. Suddenly, Luca stopped walking. His voice was cold as he shut down the idea, claiming he was simply using her. Stefan was confused, noting that Luca usually ignored such insults. Before he could question further, Luca cut him off with a sharp and final "Stefan." Luca ordered his knight to summon Kate, announcing he was taking her on an inspection. Shortly after, they arrived at the tense, heavily fortified border between the Nigel and Verde kingdoms. The king pointed toward the desolate land, explaining it would be the front line of the next battle. He informed Kate that she would participate, declaring his intention to finally end the war with Verde. A look of fierce determination crossed Kate's face as she clenched her fist. Luca observed her, coolly addressing her as Your Highness. Kate declares she will protect both kingdoms, even if it costs her life, swearing to prove her usefulness. Luca observes her, confirming his suspicions. He sees a true royal who sacrificed everything for her people and doesn't hesitate to risk it all for others. This is precisely why he brought her on this inspection. He gestures ahead to a prosperous city, one of his nation's 4 largest. Luca explains that while it boasts advanced technology, the city has a mysterious historical gap spanning centuries. Luca reveals the city's dark past. Ages ago, the vampire noble Camilla attacked, leaving nothing but barren wasteland in her wake. The city was completely wiped from existence. He explains that his people painstakingly rebuilt everything they have today. With a cold, intense gaze, Luca vows to protect it from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Kate feels that piercing stare land right on her, understanding the unspoken threat. If she ever dares to threaten his country, he will eliminate her without hesitation. The tense air is suddenly broken by Commander Kimbley. With a cheerful smile, he explains the king's harsh words. Luca may sound dangerous, but it's his way of showing he trusts Kate as a true comrade on the battlefield. The commander then invites them to discuss strategy over some drinks. Later, as they arrive at the fortress, Luca and Kate share a horse. In an unexpected gesture, the cold-hearted king reaches down, coolly asking for her hand to help her dismount. Kate is completely stunned by his sudden gentleness. As Kate takes his hand, Luca remarks that she has a high fever. Then, for the first time, a faint smile appears on his face, leaving Kate speechless. Before she can process it, he pulls her close, his grip firm. He leans in and whispers that tonight is going to run a little late, teasing that she should be used to this by now. Completely flustered, Kate stammers that she's returning to her room and quickly scurries away, leaving the king behind with his unexpected charm. Alone in her room, Kate is completely baffled. What is the king thinking, acting like they're a normal married couple? Just a moment ago, he was an ice-cold ruler, and now this? Her heart pounds as she recalls his unexpected smile and gentle touch. She can still feel the warmth from his hand lingering on hers, leaving her totally flustered. Lost in her confusing thoughts, Kate suddenly jolts in surprise, her sudden movement sending a small teddy bear tumbling to the floor. She lets out a small yelp, startled by her own reaction. Picking up the fallen teddy bear, Kate tells herself to get a grip. This is no time to be flustered by the king. She needs to understand her new vampire abilities so she doesn't accidentally become his enemy. Closing her eyes to focus, she's suddenly transported to a crimson mindscape. A powerful woman sits on a throne before her, Camilla, the progenitor vampire. Camilla smirks, calling her a little girl and asking if she was enjoying herself. Kate realizes the horses spooked earlier because they sensed Camilla's powerful presence within her. Kate asks if the horses were scared because Camilla is inside her, realizing their powers must be rapidly blending. Camilla praises her, confirming she's already sensed the truth. The vampire appears right behind Kate, explaining that their souls merge every time they share power. A horrifying thought suddenly strikes Kate. If their souls are fusing, does that mean she'll inherit the vampire's uncontrollable thirst? Filled with dread, she wonders how she can possibly stop herself from attacking people if the instinct takes over. Kate convinces herself she won't be swallowed by Camilla's influence. Their souls are just too different. Stealing her nerves, she asks the vampire one final question. Why did she destroy a town in Nigel? Camilla just smirks, casually admitting she can't even remember. She guesses it must have just caught her eye. Horrified by this cold indifference, Kate's resolve hardens. She makes a powerful vow. Even if their souls merge, she will stake her very existence on sealing away Camilla's consciousness for good, unleashing a brilliant surge of power. Within the crimson mindscape, Kate unleashes a blinding flash of power, vowing she won't let Camilla run wild. But the ancient vampire isn't intimidated. She just bursts into manic laughter. Camilla finds the girl's defiance hilarious, remarking that she sounds just like someone named Stella. Snapping back to reality, Kate touches her neck, feeling a sharp sting. The battle in her mind left a real wound on her body. Clenching her fist, she hardens her resolve. This is a fight she absolutely cannot afford to lose. Firm in her conviction, Kate remembers her people and everyone who stood by her choice. This is all for them. As night falls, she stands and walks towards her door just as a knock sounds from the other side. She calmly invites the person in. The door swings open, revealing King Luca himself. His crimson eyes scan the sparse room, noting how few belongings she has. Looking back at Kate, he asks if she has everything she needs for her stay. Kate confirms she only brought the bare essentials. Luca assures her she's in a position to ask for anything she needs, but she politely declines his offer. Confused, he asks her to explain. Kate says her current clothes are fine, and she can't bring herself to indulge in luxury while her people are suffering because of the war. Hearing her selfless reasoning, Luca's expression softens into an intrigued smile. Kate, however, gets flustered, realizing she may have accidentally rejected his kind gesture. Trying to justify her rejection, Kate rambles about needing to support the economy. In her flustered state, she accidentally bites her lip, wincing with a small yelp. In an instant, Luca is right in front of her. He gently cups her chin, his intense gaze fixed on the tiny wound. He asks if she bit herself. Embarrassed, Kate admits she did. Before she can say another word, as a small mark appeared on her neck, Kate's mind reeled. She realized this was how gentle the king could truly be, and that their past interactions were nothing in comparison. Luca pulled away, his intense red eyes watching her closely. For a moment, she was lost, wondering what she was expecting from him. She quickly warned herself not to misinterpret his kindness. Cutting through the tension, Luca stated it was time for him to take his daily share. Composing herself, Kate simply replied that she understood, ready to fulfill her duty. The sun rises, and Kate stirs awake to find Luca already dressed and preparing to leave. He gently notes that she still looks sleepy, but she quickly sits up, insisting she's fine. The king explains that his official duties call him away for the day. Before departing, Luca leans in close, cupping her face tenderly. He softly urges her to sleep a little longer, his unexpected gentleness catching her completely off guard once again. The powerful king's soft side is a stark contrast to his usual intense aura, leaving Kate quietly stunned. The door clicked shut, leaving Kate alone and completely flustered. Shiri played the morning in her mind, his unexpected gentleness catching her off guard. Last night, he had been different too, sharing a tender moment that felt separate from his usual impulses. But then she remembered the look on his face, an expression of pure regret, as if he'd made a terrible mistake. A sudden, cold realization washed over her as she recalled a crucial detail. King Luca already had a fiancé. The thought left her stunned and speechless. The weight of her new reality crushed Kate. She had simply assumed the position of his official wife was hers, but now a terrible possibility emerged. What if King Luca had already given his heart to someone else? Her gaze fell to the marks on her skin, physical proof of the time they'd spent together. The thought was sickening. If she was stealing him away from the person he truly loved, then to his fiancée, she was nothing more than a terrible nuisance. Her role in this contract suddenly felt tainted. Hoping to clear her troubled mind, Kate strolled through the palace gardens. Her quiet walk was soon interrupted by a group of approaching knights, which included Lord Alberstor. A man with striking white hair greeted her, saying it was an honor to see her again. After Kate thanked Alberstor for his help the day before, she turned to the other man, feeling they had met before. With a polite smile, he apologized for the delayed greeting and dropped a bombshell. He was Zeno, the second prince of the Nigel kingdom. Prince Zeno casually called Kate his sister-in-law, asking if he and Alberstor could join her for a chat. After she agreed, they sat down for tea and desserts. Zeno then revealed a shocking piece of history. King Luca and Alberstor had led the charge to overthrow the previous king, their own father. He described the old king as a selfish tyrant, explaining how his brother rose to power. Kate was stunned by the revelation. She realized her own kingdom only ever heard vague rumors, never the hard truths about their powerful neighbors. Kate was grateful to finally hear the real story. Prince Zeno just smiled, saying he was genuinely glad his brother took the throne. Hearing this changed Kate's entire perspective. The rumors of King Luca being a cold-blooded killer never sat right with her, and now she knew why. He wasn't a monster. He was a leader with powerful conviction, willing to do whatever it took to protect his people. She found herself smiling, wondering if his ruthless determination was a bit like her own. Suddenly, King Luca was seen rushing over. Worried, he had to intervene before Zeno revealed too much. Luca watches Kate from a distance, his mind racing. He admits she's a complete mystery to him. Although he's still wary of her, he can't deny her impact. When she speaks with such firm resolve, he wants to believe her. But when she acts recklessly, it makes him restless and worried. Above all, he knows that when he looks at her, a powerful feeling takes over. Clutching his chest, Luca realizes he can't restrain the intense emotions she brings out in him. His carefully built walls are starting to crumble. As Kate turned to face King Luca, a sudden glint of light from a high window caught her eye. She looked up, calling out his title with a smile. But Luca's face twisted in pure terror. He shot to his feet, screaming her name in a panic-stricken roar. High above them, a massive, shadowy blade was hurtling straight down, aimed directly at her. Frozen in shock, all Kate could do was watch it descend, the deadly reflection filling her wide, golden eyes. She was completely defenseless. With a desperate curse, Luca lunged forward, stretching his hand out to save her. But he knew instantly he wouldn't make it in time. The massive blade plunged from the ceiling, aimed directly at the defenseless princess. Kate was frozen, watching the weapon fall, her life flashing before her eyes. Just as the attack was about to connect, her demeanor shifted entirely. Her golden eyes ignited with a brilliant light as a powerful, golden aura suddenly erupted from her body, ready to meet the threat head-on. A brilliant golden barrier erupts from Kate, stopping the massive blade dead in its tracks. The weapon smashes into the floor, shattering the stone tiles, but leaving her untouched. Reeling from the blast of energy, Luca clutches his head. He stares in disbelief as he recognizes the overwhelming force swirling around her. It is the power of Camilla, the first vampire. As the golden light shifts to a sinister red, he rushes over, desperately asking if she is hurt. Kate calmly assures him she is fine, leaving the king to demand what on earth just happened. The commotion brings two royal knights bursting into the room. Zeno, the king's brother, shouts that he felt an immense power and urgently asks if Kate is all right. The knights freeze, their eyes wide as they take in the ruined room and the shattered blade on the floor. With a grim face, Luca wastes no time, ordering the guard Stefan to trace the weapon's origin. He explains with a dark glare that the sword fell from above, aimed directly at the princess, leaving the two knights utterly speechless and horrified. The adrenaline from the attack wears off, and Kate slumps into a chair, gasping for air. As she recovers, she hears a mysterious woman's voice. Luca's voice snaps her out of the daze, gently telling her to go back to her room with Zeno for safety. He promises to update her as soon as he knows anything. But before she can leave, Luca leans in close. He murmurs that he'll be late for dinner because of a meeting with the Elder Council. The sudden closeness sends her heart racing, leaving the princess completely flustered. Her heart hammers in her chest. She's just not used to Luca catching her off guard. As she leaves with Zeno, Stefan kneels by the shattered blade, wondering who is behind the attack. Luca grimly lays out the options. Either someone wants to test Kate's power for themselves, or they want her eliminated. Whatever their motive, it was a foolish move to underestimate Camilla's strength. As Stefan mentions the upcoming ball, an idea sparks for the king. Outside, Luca reveals to Zeno that he plans to invite Kate somewhere, a small smile playing on his lips. As they walk down the grand hallway, Kate politely dismisses Zeno, telling him he doesn't need to escort her all the way to her room. She thanks him for his concern and suggests they have tea again sometime. Zeno agrees, watching thoughtfully as she turns to leave. But just as Kate reaches her door, a voice rings out. An imposing old man, Marquis Capra, stands before her. Kate's eyes widen in recognition. She remembers his face from that chaotic incident, his expression filled with rage. Marquis Capra introduces himself with a condescending sneer. Though he claims to respect the Princess of Albu, his true feelings quickly surface. He declares that he has no desire to associate with a monster like her, not even trying to hide his disgust. But Kate keeps her composure, politely stating that she understands people have different beliefs and will respect us for now. Seizing the opening, the Marquis challenges her directly, asking if she truly believes this marriage makes her the rightful queen. Kate's polite smile vanishes, her golden eyes turning ice cold. Kate coolly informs the Marquis he's crossed a line. But the old man just laughs, declaring that only a noble from their kingdom can be queen, not some monstrous outsider. He reveals that word of her shattering the sword has already spread through the castle, and the staff is terrified. As Kate processes this, the Marquis leans in with a final, venomous question. He asks if she truly intends to bear the king's child, spitting the word burden, as if her very blood is a curse. The Marquis bellows, horrified at the thought of a monster, heir with vampire blood. As he screams about the kingdom's doom, Kate internally admits she'd also pushed aside thoughts of intimacy and succession. She had assumed their political marriage would remain purely symbolic, but the vampire's power created an unforeseen pull between them. Believing Kate is ignoring reality, the Marquis smirks, offering some wisdom to save everyone. He then calls out for his granddaughter, Violet, who steps forward with a dazzling, confident smile. Violet glides forward with a smug smile, finding it strange that her grandfather is wasting time with a mere servant. Kate forces herself to stay calm, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. She demands to know what this girl has to do with anything. The Marquis declares that his granddaughter is destined to be Kate's savior. With a triumphant grin, Violet drops a bombshell. She announces that since she was a little girl, she has been the one and only person promised in marriage to King Luca. Kate is completely blindsided by this revelation. The girl continues, explaining her entire life and education were solely to prepare her to become queen. With a dreamy expression, she even claims that she and Luca nurtured special feelings for each other. Putting on a show, Violet feigns confusion, wondering why her perfect future was suddenly snatched away by an outsider. With a look of pure drama, Violet demands to know why Kate would stand in the way of her and Luca's love. As the Marquis consoles his supposedly heartbroken granddaughter, he paints a tragic picture. Because of Kate, he claims, the king is now unable to marry the woman he truly loves. An image of Luca and Violet's perfect romance shatters in Kate's mind. She clenches her fists, realizing they're trying to blame her for everything. Confused, Kate finally asks what they meant by offering to save her. Lord Capra reveals their twisted offer. They will arrange things so Kate can step down quietly as long as she knows her place. Violet leans in, her smile dripping with poison. She reminds Kate this marriage was just a wartime contract. Then she drops the hammer. Once the war is over, Kate will be completely useless. Violet taunts her, suggesting that even King Luca would have no problem throwing away a tool that has served its purpose, especially a partner he could never truly love. Kate is left shaken by their cruel words. Violet lands another blow, sneering that it's simply embarrassing for the king to be seen with someone in such outdated rags. Kate flinches. She remembers fleeing her country in a rush and how dressing lavishly during a war felt completely wrong. Lord Capra then spells out their demand. She will help make Violet the next queen. After the war, Kate must give up all her rights and disappear. The crushing reality hits Kate. This humiliation is the price she has to pay for trying to save her people. Lord Capra presses the issue, demanding to know if she will cooperate. He insists the matter must be settled quickly. But Kate isn't the shaken girl from a moment ago. A golden light seems to surround her as she finds her resolve. This isn't something that can be fixed by giving in to them. She looks them dead in the eye and declares that she cannot accept their offer. The Marquis explodes in a fit of rage, calling her a fool for refusing. Unfazed, Kate clarifies her stance. If the king's relationship with Violet is truly good, she explains, and if they've already decided to marry, then she promises not to stand in their way. Kate stands firm, declaring that the king's heart and his decisions are his alone. She trusts that he will choose what is best for himself, without any meddling from her. Announcing there is nothing more to discuss, she excuses herself and turns to leave the fuming nobles behind. Lord Capra trembles with rage, his hand balling into a tight fist. He seethes, calling her a brat for daring to get in the way of his carefully laid plans. As his granddaughter watches, he swears he won't let things end like this. Meanwhile, Prince Zeno reports back to his brother, the king. He explains what he saw, the old Marquis Capra and his granddaughter cornering Kate. While Luca sits in stoic silence, Zeno casually recounts the entire confrontation. He then admits he understands why Luca might still be cautious of the new princess. But Zeno can't hide his frustration. He feels terrible that Kate was treated so horribly, especially since he just stood by and couldn't step in to help his new sister-in-law during the ordeal. Zeno continues his report, admitting it was painful to watch. He calls Lord Capra an old fox for pulling such a cheap and typical trick. The prince breaks it down. Since the Marquis is losing the royal family's backing, he's making a desperate play to secure power through his granddaughter. But Zeno admits he was completely surprised by Kate's response. He remarks that it's no wonder she had the nerve to propose to the king alone. Luca silently processes this, his finger tapping a document as he remembers Kate's words. A single thought crosses his mind. No. Luca's thoughts drift to Kate. Even after spending so much time together, he realizes her heart still beats only for her country. He questions if all her words and actions were simply part of the contract. Tapping a document on his desk, the king mutters that the whole situation is annoying. Zeno points out this isn't Luca's usual reaction, asking what more he could want when she's already trusted him so completely. Luca turns away, agreeing with his brother. He states that her decision to entrust everything to him was wise and acceptable. Luca silently agrees with his brother. In the end, his relationship with Kate is just a business deal, a partnership based on mutual interests. Across the palace, Kate feels the same painful reality. She recalls a moment they shared, a strange intimacy that left her feeling completely confused. She knows the truth of their contract, but she can't understand why it feels so wrong. Back in his office, Luca is just as conflicted. He remembers Zeno's words of acceptance and wonders why the entire situation bothers him so deeply. Luca's mind drifts back to Lord Capra's desperate scheme. The old Marquis had brought his granddaughter, Violette, to meet the king. With a tap of his cane, Capra got straight to the point, asking if Luca would be willing to fancy her. The memory triggers another thought for the king, someone's words approving his marriage to Kate. Luca can't figure out why that simple blessing bothers him so much now. With a sorrowful look, she says she heard he made a major decision while she was gone. Placing her hand on his, she says she felt like her heart was going to break. Luca immediately snatches his hand back. He coldly informs her that since she knows he has a wife, she should avoid such contact. Stunned, Violet asks if it isn't just a contract marriage. Violet doesn't miss a beat, reminding Luca that Kate herself admitted their relationship was one of necessity. She claims Kate plans to end the marriage as soon as the war is over. With a pained expression, Violet alleges that Kate confided in her, calling Luca a cruel and barbaric person. She adds that Kate has no desire to have a child with a man she doesn't love, branding her as the truly cold-hearted one. Listening in, Lord Capra coldly suggests they should just use them during the war and expel them after. Lord Capra detailed his cruel scheme. He advised Luca to divorce Kate after the war, then imprison her in a tower to be used as a political deterrent. To secure their nation's authority, he even suggested sacrificing prisoners from Verde to the vampires. Violet jumped in, beaming with excitement, declaring that once Kate was gone, it would be just her and Luca. A dark look crossed the king's face. He calmly remarked that their plan was so utterly foolish, it was almost impressive in its stupidity. Lord Capra demands to know what the king means by that. Luca calmly admits their marriage began with mutual interests, but he explains that ever since he accepted Kate's proposal, new possibilities have opened up for him. He realized he doesn't have to become a tyrant like his father. Instead, he can find a way to make the country prosper. Getting everyone's attention, Luca makes a grand announcement. The party next week will now be a formal event to introduce Kate to the entire kingdom, solidifying her status. Luca addresses the stunned nobles, explaining his original plan was to let Kate adjust to the country first. However, he's had a change of heart. He now believes it's better to introduce her to the kingdom immediately to stop any baseless rumors from spreading. With a knowing smirk, he tells them he expects everyone to remember that. Privately, the king reflects on how Kate has shown him a new path. He can enrich his country without becoming a tyrant like his father. For the first time, a brighter future feels possible. Luca thought about how their alliance could truly prosper. His cold, resource-rich nation and her warm, agricultural kingdom were a perfect match for trade. On top of that, while the vampires were a dangerous wildcard, Kate's unique power to control them was a massive strategic advantage. He recalled his knight, Stefan, mentioning that Kate had a proposal after reviewing a petition from the people. Impressed by her initiative, Luca decided that if her interviews went well, he would entrust her with governing the entire southeastern region of his kingdom. As Kate approached, a powerful vision filled Luca's mind. He saw them standing together, a united power couple overlooking a vast, shimmering kingdom. This was the future he'd envisioned, their two nations prospering as one. Snapping back to reality, Kate smiled warmly and addressed him as Your Majesty. A strange feeling stirred within the king, a warmth he couldn't explain. He quickly looked away, caught off guard. Internally, he decided he wouldn't try to give this new emotion a name, not yet. As Luca processed this new feeling, he decided it wasn't half bad. He reached out, his hand gently touching her face. A sudden concern washed over him as he felt how cold her skin was. He asked how long she had been waiting out here for him. Startled by the sudden contact, Kate explained she'd been walking around after dinner and simply lost track of time. Before she could say another word, Luca swiftly pulled her into a firm embrace, leaving her completely stunned and flustered by their unexpected closeness. With a sly grin, Luca told Kate he had something important to say. But first he said he needed to warm her up. He pulled her flesh against him, his breath ghosting over her skin before he leaned in and marked her neck. A sharp jolt shot through Kate, leaving her breathless. Holding her gaze with an intense look, Lucas simply told her to come. But Kate, lost in the moment, had a shocking demand of her own. She wanted him to do it again, to truly claim her. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the room. Kate let out a soft sigh as she opened her eyes, finding herself beside a sleeping Luca. As memories of the night before came rushing back, she couldn't help but think about how different he had been. He wasn't the cold, calculating king she thought she knew. Lying beside him, Kate replayed the previous night in her mind. She thought he had been so gentle and wondered if their hearts had finally grown closer. But as Luca stirred and pulled her against him, her hopeful mood shattered. A sweet fragrance clung to him, a scent she knew all too well. It was Lady Violet's perfume. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks, remembering the woman who had loved the king since they were children. In an instant, Kate's morning bliss turned to doubt. As Kate's mind raced, she concluded Luca's gentle mood wasn't for her. It had to be because he'd met with Lady Violet. The thought stung. She tried to slip out of bed, but Luca stirred, his red eyes finding hers in the morning light. Stammering, Kate said she was just getting up to change and apologized for waking him. But Luca wasn't cold or dismissive. Instead, he simply told her to go ahead and use the warm water first. His unexpected consideration caught her completely off guard, leaving her speechless. After changing, Kate was still completely baffled by the king's gentle behavior. But the surprises weren't over yet. She found Luca sitting right there, having just poured her a cup of tea. He casually told her the timing was perfect. Utterly flustered, Kate quickly apologized for the trouble. Luca simply told her to relax, explaining it was something he usually did. Kate was floored. A king making tea for someone? He explained that royals were taught not to rely on their subordinates, a principle he clearly took to heart. Luca continues, explaining that since he once served in the Night Order and lived in the dorms, doing things himself just feels more efficient. Hearing this, Kate mentions that Prince Zeno told her about the knights, finally realizing Luca was one of them. But her comment makes the king's expression darken instantly. He leans in, his voice low, asking if she's already forgotten their deal. Before she can answer, he pulls her into a sudden, deep embrace, softly commanding her to call him by his name. Kate is left completely speechless and flustered by the intense shift. Still reeling from his intense embrace, Kate shyly promised to use his name once she got more used to things. Luca simply smirked, musing aloud which would happen first, her getting used to life in Nigel or calling him by his name. He then dropped a bomb, announcing he would formally introduce her at a banquet next week. Before she could process it, he explained she must learn the necessary knowledge, offering to personally teach her anything not covered in the documents. Determined, Kate agreed to do her best. With the banquet fast approaching, Kate told Luca she would prepare. She then made a simple request. Could he send someone to her home kingdom to retrieve her belongings? Luca seemed puzzled by this. Seeing his reaction, Kate worriedly asked if it was too difficult to arrange. Suddenly, the king burst out laughing. A confused Kate asked what was so funny. He explained that her way of thinking was just unexpected. Instead of demanding a new wardrobe, she was content with bringing her old clothes, a humble request that completely caught him by surprise. As Kate murmured that she was finally starting to understand the king, he suddenly moved in close, catching her by surprise. Gently guiding her to a nearby couch, his playful mood vanished, replaced by a serious intensity. A flustered Kate asked what was wrong. Luca revealed that he now had a condition of his own for accepting their marriage. Instead of asking for power or riches, the king looked straight into her eyes and made a simple, unexpected request. He wanted her to rely on him. Kate initially refused, insisting she couldn't possibly ask for more from him. She even argued that relying on someone felt less like a reward and more like a burden. But Luca didn't back down, his intense gaze silently pressing his point. After a tense moment, Kate relented, letting out a sigh and promising that she would at least try. A satisfied smirk appeared on Luca's face, who told her that was a good answer. Later, while studying for the banquet, Kate wondered if the king was testing her when a sudden knock interrupted her thoughts. A voice called from the other side of the door, and Kate agreed to let them in. She rose from her seat, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. But the sight that greeted her made her blood run cold. On the floor lay a grim, blood-stained sack, a sinister message, with a dead rat beside it. A scream of pure terror ripped from her throat as she stumbled backward. Overwhelmed, thorny red vines burst forth from the ground, a terrifying manifestation of her fear and shock. A sinister voice whispers in Kate's mind, urging her to drink and follow her monstrous instincts. The crimson on the floor tempts her new vampire nature, and she fights a fierce internal battle to resist. She refuses, knowing she cannot lose control. This power is too much to handle alone, and she realizes she must see Camilla for guidance soon. Just then, her thoughts are shattered by a piercing scream. Her maid stands frozen in terror, finally seeing the gruesome message left at the door, her horror mirroring Kate's own. The chaos is interrupted by a new arrival, Violet Capra. She came to pay her respects, but stops dead in her tracks when she spots the horrifying scene. Violet immediately worries aloud that Kate's vampire instincts will kick in at the sight of the bloody sack. Her maids, however, are not so understanding. They whisper in disgust about the mess, with one even daring to wonder if Kate herself is responsible for the grotesque display. Kate hears every single word, forced to endure their judgment while kneeling on the cold floor. The timing of Violet's arrival feels perfectly orchestrated, and Kate's suspicion flares. Playing it cool, she quickly apologizes for the disturbance, telling the guards to investigate the gruesome package. But Violet isn't there to help. With a nasty smirk, she loudly wonders if Kate set up the bloody scene herself. She reminds the room that vampires need to feed, painting Kate as a monster in front of everyone. Kate clenches her fists, barely keeping her composure as she dismisses the crowd, needing to escape before she completely loses control. Kate dismisses the onlookers, ordering everyone, including Lady Violet, to leave. She coldly informs Violet she'll receive her greetings another time, but not without a warning to send word ahead. Unfazed, Violet steps closer, a vicious smirk playing on her lips. She leans in and whispers a cutting accusation, claiming she's heard Kate forces her way into the king's chambers every night. Hiding behind her fan, Violet calls her an indecent woman trying to win the king's favor with her body. Kate's fists tremble with rage, her composure shattering under the public humiliation. After publicly humiliating Kate, Violet retreats to reflect on her victory. She admits Kate is tougher than she thought, but her plan was a success. After that disgusting scene, she's sure everyone is now painfully aware that their new queen is a vampire. As one maid praises her impressive scheme, Violet spots another, one of the girls who badmouthed Kate earlier. Summoning the nervous maid, Violet's mask of elegance drops. She coldly reminds the girl of her orders, confirming she was the one who told her to make a big scene. The entire spectacle was her setup. Violet seethes. Her true goal was to frame Kate as a monster covered in red. The trembling maid apologizes, but Violet is beyond disappointed. The girl has failed her 2 days in a row. She remembers giving the maid her orders, completely ruin Kate's reputation and crush her spirit before next week's party. To make sure the girl doesn't forget again, Violet grabs a cup of hot tea. She pours the scalding drink directly over the maid's head, a brutal punishment and a clear warning against future failure. Violet cruelly reminds the injured maid that her grandfather finances the girl's entire family. She then gives a new order: walk around the palace in that state and make everyone believe Queen Kate had another violent tantrum. Later, Kate sits with Luca for her lessons, a storm raging inside her. She hasn't mentioned the public humiliation, but she knows the rumors must have reached him. Yet he acts completely normal. He calmly praises her progress, stating her etiquette will soon be flawless. Baffled by his strange behavior, Kate can only offer a quiet thank you. The royal knight, Stefan, praises Kate, telling her she's a quick study. While she smiles and chats with him, King Luca watches in silence. The truth is, he married her for more than just the war. He decided to use her as bait to flush out the traitors poisoning his palace from within. He knew this was the plan, but he didn't expect the bitter feeling of watching her suffer while he gathered evidence. As Luca wrestles with his own strategy, Kate casually asks Stefan how he and the king first became friends. Kate puts the pieces together. She realizes Luca and Stefan built an unbreakable trust by having each other's backs on the battlefield. Luca confirms this, explaining Stefan's loyalty was so deep, he joined him in rising up against the former king. The mood in the room shifts instantly. Luca's gaze turns intense, and he asks Kate if she's been curious about the rumors. He doesn't wait for a reply before dropping a bombshell. He was the one who ended the previous king's reign, and that king was his own father. Kate is completely stunned by the bombshell confession. She never imagined she'd hear the truth about the former king directly from Luca's mouth. Her hands clench in her lap as she manages a quiet yes. A slight smile plays on Luca's lips. He tells her that as royalty, she must understand he was raised and educated to be a good king, one who cares for his people and country. But as the memory of his past self fades, his tone shifts. The atmosphere grows heavy as he adds a single, ominous word. However, Luca explains that his father, the man he should have looked up to, was the exact opposite of a true king. While the nation was at war, the former ruler exploited his people and indulged in lavish parties. His greedy retainers were more interested in grabbing riches than giving good advice. Realizing the kingdom would collapse before the war even ended, Luca took matters into his own hands. He ended his father's reign. He admits he has never regretted his actions, but now he asks Kate what she thinks about it. Without a moment's hesitation, Kate gives her answer. She believes she would have done the same thing. While admitting she lacks his power, she insists she would have found a way to protect her royal authority and her people. A confident smile spreads across Luca's face. Taking her hand, he observes that he already knew she was the type to do reckless things for her country. He gently kisses her knuckles, admiring the bold heart that lies within her delicate frame. Kate is left completely flustered, her own heart thumping loudly. Luca observes that in this regard, the two of them are very much alike. A confident smirk spreads across his face as he lets out a soft laugh. Kate's heart pounds in her chest, but she can't deny that she finds his confidence impressive. Later, she stands alone in the grand hallway, lost in thought. She reflects on how pristine everything in the palace is. It's so clean, as if the dark deeds required to achieve this peace had never happened at all, with the trash being neatly disposed of. A knight reports to Kate that their investigation has hit a dead end. She dismisses him, realizing that despite her progress with Luca, her life here is still full of challenges. Her fears are confirmed when she opens the door to her quarters. The room has been completely ransacked, her belongings shattered and strewn across the floor. In shock, she wonders how anyone could have bypassed the guards. A sudden image of a smug Violet Capra flashes through her mind, revealing the likely culprit. Then, Luca's words echo in her memory, telling her to learn to rely on him. Kate realizes Luca might have known something like this would happen. Still, she decides to handle it herself, refusing to be seen as someone who just needs protecting. But the harassment doesn't stop. It escalates. Over the next few days, she's locked in a records room and becomes the target of a nasty rumor. Whispers spread that she's a blood drinker, with fake evidence planted to frame her. The danger becomes real when she's suddenly attacked by a pack of wild dogs let loose on the palace grounds. Kate realizes her enemies are getting sloppy, not even trying to hide their actions from Luca. She knows what they're doing, they want to paint her as the problem. The plan is already in motion. Vicious rumors spread among the staff, telling a tale of how Kate destroyed her own room in a rage. The story gets worse, claiming she threw tea in the face of a maid named Elisa. The gossip concludes that she's nothing but an untamed barbarian, just as her tormentors intended. Kate instantly clocks the maid, Elisa, the very one from the rumors, and knows she's working for the enemy. Just then, Luca walks in, relieved he caught her. He asks her to join him for a final check of the venue for an upcoming party. Seizing the opportunity, Kate agrees. As the king's wife, managing these events is her duty, and she needs to learn how things are done in Nigel, fast. She can feel the hostile glares from the staff, but Luca's steady gaze tells her he's giving her the perfect stage to assert her authority. The tension in the room is electric as the maids whisper in the corner. Luca's crimson eyes flash with annoyance. He walks over to Kate, gently interrupting her work by calling her name. Without another word, he drapes his heavy, fur-lined cloak over her shoulders and suggests they get some fresh air. Leading her onto a quiet balcony, he offers a silent escape. Kate clutches the warm cloak, thanking him. She realizes he must know about the commotion surrounding her. Even though he hasn't said a word, this gesture is his answer. On the freezing balcony, Kate realizes Luca's silence is deliberate. He knows about the rumors, but he's testing her, waiting to see if she can solve this mess on her own. A fire ignites within her. She will meet his expectations. Breaking the quiet, she notes the chill in the air. Suddenly, Luca turns, his crimson eyes locking onto hers. He closes the distance, pulling her into a warm embrace. His voice is a low murmur, a simple request for her to be with him, a silent promise of his unwavering support. Luca leans in, his voice a low whisper, asking Kate to dance with him. Stunned by the sudden request, she can only stare. He simply holds out his hand, a charming smirk on his face. A blush warms her cheeks as she accepts, telling him it would be her pleasure. He pulls her close, and they glide across the grand hall, their movements silencing the gossiping staff. Just moments ago, Kate's mood was in the gutter, but now, in his arms, she feels a warmth spread through her entire body. As the staff swoons, Kate feels her worries completely melt away. She laughs, admitting this is the most fun she's ever had dancing, and it's all thanks to him. A small, pleased smile plays on his lips. Suddenly, he yanks her forward, and she lets out a startled cry. He asks what's wrong, his face now inches from hers. He whispers that she has something on her cheek. It's a single, delicate bubble, and as they both stare at it, the moment hangs heavy in the air between them. Luca looks up at the sky, noting the snow will likely pile up by morning. He starts to suggest they go inside, but Kate interrupts him, utterly captivated. With a bright laugh, she explains this is her first time seeing snow, since her home kingdom never gets any. A warm smile spreads across Luca's face. Seeing her this excited makes the cold worth it. But his concern quickly takes over. In one swift motion, he pulls her into a tight embrace, warning her that the snow drains body heat far too quickly. Luca holds her tighter, his voice a low murmur as he tells her it seems he'll have to warm her up again. Stunned into silence, Kate can only blush as she buries her face in his chest, completely overwhelmed by how good he smells. But this intimate moment is being watched. From the shadows below, Violet Capra seethes with an icy rage. She can't believe what she's seeing. Vowing to never forgive this new woman, Violet declares that she's the one who belongs by the king's side and will stop at nothing to get in Kate's way. Her vampire instincts suddenly take over. The taste is sweet, intoxicating, and she finds herself craving more and more. Just as quickly as it started, she snaps out of it, horrified that she lost control again. But Luca isn't fazed in the slightest. He pulls her close, a knowing look in his eyes as he points out that for once, she's the one who lacks composure. Before she can process his words, he gently guides her finger to her lips, a silent, teasing reminder of what she's just done, leaving her completely flustered. Luca smirks, tilting Kate's chin up and asking if she wants more. Blushing hard, Kate stammers that his intense gaze is just too embarrassing. He simply chuckles, telling her it's a bit late for that as he pulls her flesh against him. His touch sends a jolt through her, and the intoxicating feeling becomes overwhelming. She can't stop her reaction. Seeing this, Luca whispers that she seems to be enjoying it. He leans in closer, teasing that his touch alone might not be enough to satisfy her hunger anymore. The next morning, Kate is drowning in embarrassment, convinced she's done shameful things again. Luca, however, is all business. He notes how unusually desperate she was for him the night before and asks if her body is undergoing some kind of change. Flustered, Kate admits that his blood has started tasting incredibly delicious to her lately. Luca decides they'll discuss this later, as they have a more pressing matter to attend to. He drops a bomb on her. Today is the debut party. The sudden news leaves Kate completely speechless and caught off guard. Kate stares in horror at the chaos that was once her room. Her beautiful gown lies in tatters, the accessories destroyed. In the middle of the mess sits the teddy bear Luca gave her, but a dagger has been plunged through it, pinning a dead, venomous scorpion. She immediately recognizes the deadly creature as a Skia. If she had touched it without looking, she would have collapsed. Her life was spared, but a new panic washes over her. With her debut party just hours away, her outfit is completely ruined. With her debut party dress in ruins, Kate is saved at the last second. The royal knight, Stefan Alberstor, arrives with a stunning new gown, declaring it a personal gift from the king himself. Kate had already informed him of the attack, and Luca clearly wasted no time. Just then, the king makes his entrance, dressed in an immaculate formal uniform. He stops dead in his tracks, his eyes locking onto Kate. She stands before him, now wearing the magnificent dress that perfectly complements his own attire, leaving him momentarily speechless and completely captivated. Luca breaks the silence, telling Kate that the Neagle style suits her perfectly, confirming his judgment was correct. Blushing, Kate agrees, attributing the dress's beauty to his excellent choice. She humbly admits that without his gift, she would have caused him great trouble. He gently lifts her chin, reminding her that he told her to rely on him. Taking her hand, Luca declares their first order of business is to humble those who tried to shame her. With a command, the massive ballroom doors swing open, revealing the grand party waiting inside. Luca and Kate make their grand entrance, a perfect picture of royal power. As they walk in, the crowd's attention is fixed on them, but one noble lady, Violet, is completely frozen. She stares in disbelief, outraged that Kate is wearing a dress with a design reserved only for the queen. The bitter truth crashes down on her. That garment was supposed to be hers. Violet begins to spiral, questioning if Luca is truly choosing this foreign princess and completely abandoning her. The king's message has been sent. King Luca addresses the entire ballroom, his voice booming with authority. He formally declares that he has welcomed Princess Kate of Albu as his queen. As the nobles clap, Violet sees Luca's gaze sweep over the crowd. For a delusional moment, she believes he's looking at her with longing. But that fantasy is brutally crushed. The king's eyes are not soft. They're filled with pure, ice-cold contempt. The silent message is delivered, and Violet's world completely shatters as she understands he is warning her. Violet finally understands. As a disturbing smile forms on her face, she concludes that Kate must have somehow brainwashed the king. In her delusional mind, it's the only explanation. There's simply no way Luca wouldn't choose her. Later that evening, in a quiet, snowy garden, Kate confronts the king. She cautiously asks if he was truly serious when he introduced her to the entire ballroom as his queen. She needs to know if his bold declaration was the truth, or just for show. Luca asks if she's alright, but Kate is filled with doubt. She tells him that becoming his queen will only bring more challenges and cause him trouble. She knows their marriage was a political necessity, but she can't forget that the queen's title was originally meant for his former fiancé. Before she can finish her thought, Luca silences her by pulling her close, leaving her completely stunned. Their moment is broken by the arrival of Marquis Capra, who apologizes for interrupting but can't help but compliment how magnificent the new queen looks. Lord Capra praises Kate's dress, impressed she wore motifs only permitted for the queen. He compliments her strategic thinking, even during a war. But then, the praise turns into an insult. He patronizingly suggests that politics are still too difficult for a shrine maiden princess. Kate glares at him, clearly annoyed. Suddenly, Luca cuts in with a smirk. He asks if Capra's sarcastic remark was aimed at him, since he was the one who chose the dress. The Marquis is left speechless, completely blindsided by the king's defensive power move. Luca doubles down, declaring that unlike the teenage granddaughters of some aristocrats, his wife is selfless and endearing. He insists Kate has lived modestly without greed, so the dress is no issue. Kate blushes, touched by his fierce defense, realizing he might even know about her earlier confrontation. Suddenly, their tense standoff is shattered by a frantic scream for help. A maid has apparently slipped, and the floor is stained red. In the middle of the chaos stands a horrified Violet, covered in blood and screaming in terror. The pungent scent of blood floods Kate's senses, triggering a desperate, primal craving she struggles to suppress. Across the room, a smirking Camilla savors the moment, confident she was right about Kate's reaction. This is her chance to expose the new queen's monstrous secret. But King Luca acts fast. Seeing Kate's immense distress, he embraces her tightly and gives a curt order to his knight, Stefan, to handle the situation. In a blinding flash of light, Luca teleports them both far away from the chaos and prying eyes. In a secluded corridor, Luca sees Kate's unbearable struggle and presents a shocking solution. He holds her close, offering his own neck and telling her to drink. Torn but desperate, Kate apologizes as she gives in to her overwhelming thirst. But they are not alone. Peeking from around a corner, a horrified Violet watches the unbelievable scene unfold. As the king's power rushes into Kate, she feels an intense heat course through her veins. In a stunning display, a pair of massive, dark demonic wings bursts from her back. An intense, searing heat floods Kate's body. She cries out in agony, telling Luca that her back feels like it's burning. Before his shocked eyes, two enormous, demonic wings violently tear through her dress, unfurling in the dim light. The sheer power is overwhelming, causing her to tremble in his arms. Luca can only hold her tighter, his face a mask of disbelief and concern. But their private moment is shattered. Peeking through the cracked door, a terrified Violet witnesses the queen's monstrous transformation, her face pale with horror. Violet lets out a terrified scream, convinced the winged queen is a monster who's about to attack the king. Her panicked shouts draw guards, who immediately rush to the scene. Kate stares at her own demonic wings in utter disbelief, struggling to understand her monstrous new form. But as chaos erupts, Luca remains completely calm. He gently takes her trembling hand and pulls her close, his voice firm but reassuring. He tells her to calm down, shielding her from the onlookers and taking control of the situation. Luca quietly asks Kate if she can pull her new wings back in. Trembling, she confesses she can't control them. Outside, the chaos grows as guards, alerted by Violet, demand to know where the king is. Kate panics, terrified they'll see her monstrous form. But Luca remains completely unfazed by the commotion. He steps in front of her, shielding her from view with his own body. In a firm, commanding voice, he tells her to get behind him, ready to face the approaching soldiers and protect his queen. The guards hammer on the door, demanding to know if the king is inside. Unfazed, Luca calmly tells them to lower their voices. He smoothly explains he was only tending to his wife, who felt unwell from the earlier commotion. But Violet isn't buying his excuse for a second. Pointing a trembling finger, she shrieks that she saw everything. She accuses Kate of being a monster who is attacking him, a real vampire who has brainwashed the king. Her wild accusations echo through the hall, leaving everyone stunned. As Violet's accusations hang in the air, Kate desperately prays for her demonic wings to just disappear, her entire body trembling in fear. Unconvinced by Luca's calm demeanor, Violet doubles down. She screams that if she's truly wrong, Kate should step forward and prove her innocence by showing everyone her back. But Luca has had enough. He coldly calls out Violet's rudeness. Turning his head just enough to be heard, he calmly reassures his queen that everything is all right, never once moving from his position, shielding her from view. Just as the tension peaks, Kate steps forward, her wings completely gone. With perfect composure, she apologizes for the commotion. The crowd stares, confused. Her back is completely normal. As murmurs spread that it was all a misunderstanding, Violet's face twists in disbelief. Luca coldly dismisses the guards before turning his icy glare on her. He accuses her of spying and attempting to ruin the queen's reputation. As punishment for her insolence, he banishes her from the palace, promising an official investigation will soon follow, leaving her utterly terrified. Luca coldly orders the guards to take Violet away. Panicked, she screams for them to unhand her, desperately pleading with the king. But it's no use. The doors slam shut, sealing her fate. As the chaos fades, Kate trembles, completely overwhelmed by the intense confrontation. Suddenly, Luca grabs her shoulders, forcing her to face him. His voice is dangerously low as he demands to know what on earth is going on. Stunned by his intensity, Kate can only stare back, completely speechless and shaken to her core. Suddenly, Kate's world dissolves into a blood-red haze. A sinister voice calls out, and before she can react, the vampire noble Camilla appears from the shadows, grabbing her in a tight hold. Camilla sneers, telling Kate she's been too distracted by her little romance with the king, ignoring the reality of her situation. With a chilling smile, she reveals a terrifying truth. While Kate was procrastinating, their souls have started to fuse together even more deeply, sealing Kate's inescapable fate as the progenitor's vessel. Kate stammers in disbelief as a brilliant light erupts from her chest. Camilla's wicked laughter echoes in the void, declaring it won't be long before she takes full control. The vampire noble reveals her chilling, long-awaited wish. Together, they will turn the entire continent into a sea of blood. She taunts the princess, asking why she insists on bearing this burden alone. With a sinister whisper, Camilla tempts her to just give in and let everything become easier, breaking her will piece by piece. Camilla's voice is like poison, urging Kate to be a good girl and cast aside her burdens. She tempts the princess, telling her to simply fall into her arms and let it all end. But just as Kate's will begins to crumble, a hand reaches through the crimson void. A familiar voice calls her name, its touch both cold and warm. The sudden sensation snaps her back to reality as a blinding red light erupts from her chest, violently shattering Camilla's influence and throwing the vampire noble back.